Okay, so how are we doing?
You're ready?
Okay, thank you very much. Raj, thank you. Okay, so we're going to convene the regular council meeting of May 27th and call the meeting to order and the approval of the agenda, late items.
We have a few late items. There are 4 letters regarding DBP 03-2019, which is item 7.3 of the agenda. And you also received 2 by email after the on-tail package was prepared.
Okay.
So those will be included as well, which is in your email. And then item 7.4, the Island Community Planner revised her report just to change the funding source that was identified, so that's just included as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
And that is all.
Approval of the agenda. Thank you, David. Second. Okay, thanks, Ron. All in favor? Thank you. And public comments. We got somebody on the list?
We have 3.
Fantastic.
Rafe regarding the Bowen Classic Car Show.
Okay. Come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not sure.
You can sit down. Yeah, relax.
Join us.
Thank you. I just wanted to say hello, and I'm not sure if all of you know about the car show or have been there before. I know Gary has, but anyway, my wife and I host, this will be our 3rd year coming up, a little non-profit charitable car show on our property on Adams Road, and the proceeds go to the Museum and Archives. And so the last couple of years we've been able to give just over $3,500 for them. Reason I was here today is that I was asked, or it was mentioned to me, that I need to renew a temporary use permit. So to put this whole car show on, and I did send an email, and I'm not sure if you've all looked at it or not, but long story short is I had to go through a lot of paperwork and the logistics just to put the car show on, development permits and environmental reports and preparing reports, and these all cost a fair amount of money. So I was asked again to renew temporary use permit of $750 for the next 3 years. So I'm just here to ask whether or not that might be waived in consideration of the charitable event that it is, and that's basically what my request is.
Super.
So,
Any questions, anybody?
Rafe, what we'll do is we'll ask staff to bring a report to the next council meeting with
Okay.
your request, and the council can formally consider it.
sure.
Because they can't make any decisions in
Yeah.
public comment.
Oh, no, of course not, I understand.
What's the date on it again?
July 20th?
Okay.
The application is for a 3-year temporary use permit?
I don't know.
Yes,
the
yes,
details.
that's the renewal.
So we haven't had to renew this every year, you did it 3 years ago.
No, I did it the first year, and then we did a renewal last year, and now this is, again, it has to, or the renewal now is for 3 years, so.
And if you're, you might want to provide some financial statements for the operation for the last 2 years to give some idea of the hardship?
Of the hardship?
Well,
Why you're asking
why
for the
you're asking
fee.
for the fee?
Well, it's mainly because the beneficiary is the Museum and Archives. So I basically am fronting all the costs for the show, or I have up to this point, and then once we get, the donations and the entry fees and that thing, and then I provide the remaining back to the museum. So I'm doing this for as a fun community event, and it's costing me thousands of dollars just to get to do the first show, which I didn't, basically, I covered myself. I didn't absorb or didn't put that forward to the museums or to the whole revenue. So that was basically, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Ryan.
So if you could just add to the minutes that I requested that Emma report to the next meeting.
The temporary use permit is It's
coming
forward
forward
in
anyway?
intent,
Okay,
so
good.
we'll get that done.
Perfect.
And next?
Oh, sorry.
How about Robin?
Yeah, sorry. Running first.
Hi, Rob.
Good evening, everybody. I have 3 quick things. So number 1, I just want to address Lot 3, which we'll be discussing tonight, and I just wanted to say that Birch, myself, the board, were very, very pleased with the outcome that we've reached with this process with the Mayor's Standing Committee, and we're really looking forward, we're hopeful that Council feels the same and that this will get approved, and when it's approved tonight, we'll be moving forward with our feasibility stage, so we're very, very pleased. Number 2 is the housing survey, which I'm sure you're all dying to see. So we've got the draft summary report, literally just fixing all the last typos and everything now, so it should be out this week. And I'll forward that formally to Mayor and Council email. And if you would, I would welcome a request if you're interested for me to present the results either at Council or maybe at a Housing Committee meeting, but I'll forward the report and you'll have that. So, and if you'd like me to present it, I'd be happy to do that. And the last one being operational funding, which I know you're going to discuss and was previously discussed in the committee of the whole just now. So I know when I rewatched the video, we didn't get approved with the grants committee for any funding, and I think that was mainly they wanted to bring it back to council because of the unique relationship that we have with council and with the municipality. So I just wanted to sort of reiterate our needs for this funding, and that we would really appreciate your support. Operational funding, especially for us at this stage, is really critical, and it will set us up for success, not only on this first project that we're partners in, that we're working on together, but also us as an organization to help us get on our feet, because we're in that startup stage, and to really set us on a great path moving forward. So I'm going to hang out and wait until you discuss it, and if at all you have any questions when that comes up or now, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, anybody have any questions at this point? No, I guess
Not
that's
easy,
it.
okay.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Very appreciative. I'm very pleased.
I've got a little handout. Well,
Murray Atherton, 1477 Cedar Road. Here talking primarily about the variance request that we have for whatever it's called here. File number DVP 03-2019. Anyways, first of all, I want to thank you guys. I've got a pile of thank yous. Number 1 is for the program commenced on the short-term vacation rentals. It's going to be a huge boost to the economic viability of the island once these are legalized. Again, thank you for the increase in the operation budget for the Tourism Bowen Island Info Center. Thank you for the $2,700 for Light Up Bowen. Thank you for the support and agreement of the Eagle Cliff Docks and the consideration for the aging in place variance application mentioned above. Basically, my wife Anna Marie has been diagnosed with an arthritic hip. It's bone on bone, and as she says, I've seen the future and it isn't pretty. She has to have a replacement. And right now, every time she walks, it's just grinding. We don't really ever want to move from the island. Thus, the request for aging in place. Basically, that's the reason why we're asking for this. She's been to Oasis. She's been placed on the rapid list. She got a phone call this week, or late last week, indicating it could take from 6 to 9 months to get an appointment with the physician. Then you have to wait for an operation. Right now we have our master bedroom upstairs. We have 1 bathroom on the main floor. 4 o'clock in the morning, going down the stairs and going back up the stairs is a pretty precarious little operation. So we're hoping to be able to start construction as soon as possible to expand this guest room that we have and guest room, craft room, expand it by about 8 feet so it can become a master bedroom, and we put in a king-size bed, and then move the guest room upstairs. And that way she won't have to worry about getting up and down the stairs. We have shared the variance application with neighbors and received supportive letters from Jan Stevens, Colin Roy, Malcolm Stewart, Elizabeth Gochi, and Lynn and Sandra Gursky. They're the immediate neighbors, as you can see on that list. And then Tom and Dale Edwards, Kia Grant, Leon Goose, John and Jeannie McGee, who own 3 properties, Tara Choi and Glenn Shepherd, and also Stephen Shepherd. They're neighbors within the 100 meters of our property. Tried to contact Zoe Shotwell, but have not received a reply. I don't know where she is in the world, but she has a renter in her property, but we can't even see her face from our place. We've received 1 negative response from Susan Sheehan, who has concern about the fence's impact on Cleator Road. It has no impact on Cleator Road. Actually, our Cleator Road has impact on us because the entrance to Cleator Lane is on our property. And she also was concerned about the turnaround. I couldn't understand her letter, but there is no effect because we don't approach anywhere near the road. We thank Emma Chow for all the work she's done to process the application. However, we're hoping with only, well, I put down here, only 3 respondents not responding. 2 of them responded today, so 1 resident not responding. On the addition to our guest room to make it an accessible master bedroom, that the process might be fast-tracked, so council might make a decision on our application at the next June 10th meeting, rather than have to wait till the 24th, which hopefully will assist in the fast track of the building permit, so Anna Marie can age in place much more comfortably by July or August once we can get into that bedroom. She's in pain, it hurts, and with the letters of support, there's, if you have to put something in the newspaper, well, hopefully it can get in this week. But with the letters, I don't know if you have to send out a letter to all the neighbors because they've already responded. Anyways, all I can do is say thank you for listening to me, and we'll be talking about this sometime in the next hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Any questions before you leave? Does anybody have any discussion? Okay. Thanks, Marie. All right. And that's it. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to have a look at a little bit later? Okay, start with Maureen.
3.4 and 3.6.
4 and 6?
Yeah. Just small questions.
Okay.
I was gonna ask for 3.4 as well.
Okay. Allison?
3.8?
3.8. Is that it?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Last chance?
Could we ask that 3.4 we dealt with a little earlier in the agenda, in case Raj has to leave to catch a ferry?
Sure, absolutely.
All I was wanting to, it's just a correction in the recommendation, the 20,000.
I have questions.
Well, no, there's an email that Hope received from Tourism Bowen Island
Okay.
that they don't want a 4-year agreement because they don't want to, maybe we can discuss it at the time.
I think all Maureen is saying is the recommendation
but I-
is as soon as you guys, oh, that's what you're talking, oh, sorry.
Yeah, because Tourism Bowen Island
Not
doesn't support a
supportive.
4-year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pulled.
It is full. Okay, so the council approved the items as outlined in the May 27th, 2019 consent agenda as amended. So you need it. Thank you, Sue Ellen. David, I got you on number 2. Thank you. All in favor? All right. Delegations? Got none. Staff reports. Sheila.
Oh,
Sheila?
the new shill is Raj.
There's Sheila. Oh, wow. Okay,
Okay,
right.
so this is a staff report on community grants. And Shale did an outstanding job in coordinating and meeting with the Community Grants Committee, so I'm just gonna give you a little bit of background. We have a total budget of $140,000 for grants. So out of the $140,000, 12,440 is paid annually for the community school coordinator, and council has approved multi-year core funding, which comes out of that budget as well for Bowen Island Arts Council and Bowen Island Museum and Archives in the amount of $85,040, which leaves a budget provision of $42,160 for consideration in awarding community grants. So the resolution before you is a recommendation of the Community Grants Committee in terms of what grants should be awarded. If you go a little bit further down in the report to the discussion section, there is a good summary of the amounts that were requested for community grants, and the second column shows the CGAC recommendation. So there were $77,346 in grant funds requested. The Community Grants Committee is recommending issuance of grants in the amount of $42,160, which is the available budget to the organizations. As shown, almost all the organizations are being awarded their ask. The only difference is due to limited funds, I believe Bowen Agriculture Alliance, they recommended $2,000 less than the $5,000, and basically the two organized, Bowen Island Golf Association, which had requested $2,000, the CGAC's recommendation was to award $0, and Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing Society was requesting $25,000, and again, the committee's recommendation was $0, but they also recommended that council, what was the exact wording of that council, where did that
Further.
go?
Consider the 2019 community grant application from Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing in the amount of
He referred to
$25,000.
council.
Yeah.
Be referred to council for consideration. Thank you, Sue Ellen.
I was just reading.
And that's kind of a summary of the report there. Can I answer any questions for you, or?
I'm very familiar with the process, but has anybody else got a question? Allison?
So there's 6 organizations that asked for money and are getting less than they asked for, and the others are, Birch makes 7, and then the rest of them are getting what they asked for, so I'm reading it right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, as far as the discussion with Birch, there's no money left in this pot. All the funds have been allocated. So I don't know where we go with that, Maureen.
I've got a draft motion.
Okay,
That council award Birch a grant of $25,000 to achieve the objectives noted in its 2019 community grant application as part of Island Plan 2019 Strategic Priority A1.
And where's that money going
Where,
to
yeah.
come
We are deciding how we're going to fund some of the strategic priorities. We have a housing assessment. We have, potentially heritage. We have, a number of small items. I don't think I'm all that able to come up with an answer to where is it going to come from. I just would like it to come from somewhere.
well, it won't be coming under the community grants, there's no money left in there unless we start
Yeah, I
stripping all
realize
the
that.
rest.
That's why the motion says funded as part of the Island Plan 2019
Oh, it's
strategic
part of the plan,
priorities.
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't approve spending any money on anything that we don't identify the source of funding for, because under the community charter, if you haven't budgeted for it, you can't spend it. And not that it isn't a worthwhile program, but I think the most I can support at this point would be referring it to staff to identify how we would fund that, which is what we're also doing with all the other strategic priorities.
Do you want to go, Raj? You had your hand up.
I agree with what
Yeah, I was
Councilor
gonna recommend
Morris
the same
said.
approach. I think rather than having that discussion tonight, if there's appetite from council to fund this as part of our reporting back about the strategic priorities, is identifying a fund for up to $25,000, and then council has the debate as to how much they want to fund.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I believe it's, you know, we need to identify a funding source, because otherwise we would be committing to providing funding to somebody without having a source for funding, and I think council could end
And
up.
in the
putting
last
themselves
meeting,
in-
our last committee of the whole, we talked about coming back to council at the next council meeting to identify those funding sources.
It's all about process here.
Yeah, so I'm very pleased to hear the direction, because I agree with the intent of what you were saying, Maureen. I also really support the work of a community group that has, the volunteers have done all the work, and everybody's put in all those applications and gone through all this sort of work, and I can see that the 25,000 would have just eaten the whole thing up almost, and it would have meant that virtually nobody would have got the grants. And that also, the work that Birch is doing is very much aligned with our strategic direction. So I support the direction that's been proposed, and Allison and Raj's Kathy's suggested approach.
So,
I'm also in support of the idea of something like that council direct staff to identify a funding source for Birch operational funds as per their application to community grants, something like that. And I'm sure Hope is working on it over there. Because I think that finally, after all these years, we've got a wonderful board of volunteers who is doing different kinds of work, acting in partnership to raise funds at this crucial time. And I just mean all the stars seem to be much closer to alignment than they have been with previous volunteer groups, and I'm excited about the possibilities of working in partnership with them and to set up the organization for the long term. This is a housing crisis that's been developing for 20 years or more, and I think there's going to be a lot of work ahead of us, and I would like to set this seems like a good investment for this council to set up a group like this for success, for the long term. So when there's a motion, I'll be happy to vote in favor. Can you repeat what you've got?
Sure. That council directs staff to identify a funding source for Birch's request for operational funding and report back to council.
okay,
Can you read that again, please, slower at the beginning?
That council directs staff to identify a funding source for Birch's request for operational funding and report back to council.
I move this.
okay. Any further discussion on this part of it? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. All right, so back to the actual community grants, and,
I'll move it.
okay,
I can second that.
okay. And so we'll just take that number 2 out of that recommendation, but, any further discussion on this?
Number 1, correct?
We're just doing number 1,
Right.
yes. Any further discussion? Ask the question, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so, Michelle, waiting so patiently.
And that's not- These are all- just gonna turn this on. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is bringing back the public electric vehicle charging station project. Just a quick refresher on the background. Having a public charging station in the Cove is actually supported by some OCP policies and objectives, as well as the transportation plan and the community energy and emissions plan. In October of last year, we did purchase 2 pedestal-mounted level 2 charging stations that are both capable of networking functions. That would be managed by the Flow company. They are the largest electric vehicle charging network company in Canada. And The purpose of this report,
Sorry, we just have
We're
a
gonna
cat.
Meowing.
Yes. It's distracting. Sorry about that.
Bob's looking.
Put it like some
Sorry, I'm
Sorry, Emma.
It's just a bit distracting. For those of
He's
us,
just sitting underneath the window looking at us.
He really wants a charging station.
So this report is to bring back siting options for the installation of a public EV charging station. And staff has identified 3 options. This is based on feedback from the Transportation Advisory Committee, public engagement, as well as council direction throughout this project. The 3 locations shown here are all located near the ferry around the library. This one is at the east corner of the current library lot. Option C is proposed for the future expansion of the library lot, which has yet to be planned and constructed. And option B is on Cardina, with the planned future road improvements on Cardina. It would be one of the parallel parking spaces.
I think Bob just burned the cat.
I think it's because we were referring to cat burning earlier.
We're being filmed. Apologies.
No, I can't even think of cats.
Excuse us, sorry.
So with the 3 options, option C I think is the least attractive because it is in a location that is yet to be determined, and if it does get constructed, it'll be likely in the next several years, which would be a huge delay to this installation. Option B on Cardina, there has been pretty vocal opposition from the local stakeholders with concern that it would take up precious parking. You know, with the road improvements, there will be several fewer spaces, and the electric vehicle charging station would replace one of the spaces. So that leaves us with option A, which is actually more ideally situated for installation because it's right next to an existing BC Hydro post, whereas the other 2 locations would probably require more infrastructure installation. So with that, staff is recommending that we proceed at this point with the installation of a public EV charging station at option B.
And option, is C the one you're recommending?
A.
Yeah.
That has the support of our Public Works Manager, the cat whisperer. And he has graciously agreed to give up one of his Public Works parking spots.
What a guy.
Little organized.
A couple of questions, Emma. Why aren't we doing 2 at this time?
We do have 2 physical stations, but because of the current parking pressures on those spots in the Cove and the expected demand on a public EV charging station in that location, we don't anticipate that we can justify taking away 2 spots. So right now we're starting with 1, and if the demand increases for public charging, we always have the second station to put in.
And the other question would be, can you come directly off the telephone pole to the EV station?
The hydro pole?
Or the hydro pole, I'm sorry, the hydro pole?
We should be able to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You put a meter on it, or how's that work? Bob?
Do you know more, Bob?
You'd like to come off the pole, go underground, have a base for a meter,
Oh, okay.
and then have a power box or anything would here.
Oh, okay, awesome. So,
I'm in support of this proposal and the recommendation there. I like that the location A is so visible that it allows us as a municipality to exemplify the idea of electric vehicles into some sustainable future. That visibility is a really important role that a municipality can play in climate action. And exemplify is one of the stronger of the various E's that municipalities can do and like engage and enable and encourage, and exemplify is way up there. So I'm in support of that. I'm glad it fits with that existing pole, because I was wondering about the new pole that was proposed, but I'm happy to see that it's right here. I can see it on your photo, it's great. And I have a question. Is the Flow network, this is the one where you can actually work with your data online for your car? Is that correct? Or it transmits the data somehow? You don't have to, never mind. I don't have my,
Sure.
yeah, never mind. I don't have the question formulated. I can look it up later. Thank you.
Go to David and.
Yeah, just a lot of the things that Swellen said, I agree with. The Transportation Committee has discussed this quite a bit. And looking at also in the last meeting, you know, we were, how come this isn't moving? Let's get this going and so on. And one of the points that Swellen made is that the visibility is really important. And the use here is really not for islanders, it's for visitors who come over and are, you know, worried that their car will, you know, not get home or something like that. That's the idea. And some members of the Transportation Committee haven't looked at the agenda very much like that spot, so
Good.
I'm in favor.
Excellent, thank you, Ron.
Yeah, Emma, just a question, and I'm just thinking down the road, potentially across our bike path going, how we would structure that in the cove itself. Is this going to be set back far enough so that that will not hinder potentially doing something there as far as a bike path or pedestrian path or whatever we decide to do on that side of the road?
That's a very good question. As Bob had mentioned, when the car comes back out and there's going to be a panel of some sort, we'll make sure that it's located well far away enough from the right of way. That being said, if we do bring multi-use, when we bring multi-use path into the cove, the right of way, our municipal right of way, is actually somewhere on that sidewalk already. So if we were to widen it, it would go into the existing road unless we get permission from Metro Vancouver to use the park space on the other side.
Yeah.
So that's something that's quite a few years in the future for the session.
It'd just be good if we kept that in mind, that we create as much space there as possible, so that's.
So longer cord.
Longer cord.
Yeah. 200 feet long. Allison?
Okay, so, no, I know there's two different levels. Is level 2 the fast charge one, or the
It's-
slow charge?
Medium fast.
It's the middle
Oh,
one.
there's a level 3, I thought we were level 2.
Level 3 is the fastest one right now.
And how much did these charging stations cost us?
They were covered by BC Hydro.
Okay. So that would have been a nice little plus, I think, to have in the report, so that the community knows we didn't, and give Hydro the kudos for doing it. And excuse me, but the cat just changed. The new audience is just arrived. Oh my goodness. She missed the comments.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell
Put her in
Raj.
Michael's chair.
I'm sorry, but she's not in navigation.
I guess the only other thing is, how long will it take to charge then, is this level 2? I mean, how many cars is it gonna be able to deal with? And picking up on the flow service, will people be able to tell from their cell phone when their car's charged, so they have to go and move it? Or are they gonna park in the morning and stay there all day?
Well, the network capability does tell you by your cell phone, smartphone application that your car is charged.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, it does have that.
That's what I thought you were asking.
But the lot still has a 3-hour time limit on it. So if we choose to enforce that, then,
So the signage will be very clear that you've still only got 3 hours.
and we also have the option of making this a pay-per-use service, which is another incentive to move your car.
Thank you.
Snug it right in there.
Taking over
This
Ronald.
is,
We
This
had a
is-
by-election.
stand in for Councillor Kale.
Much better looking.
Raise your hand.
No, Sue, that's your name tag.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well.
Emma, just one
Okay.
last question. Ongoing operational cost and fixing it when it breaks down and all that, are we on the hook for that, or how is that going to be dealt with?
If the station physically breaks.
Well, it will
Maintenance,
physically
just
break
general
eventually.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Somebody backs into it, all sorts of different
The
things.
water
It
gets
is
in.
our station, so yes, we would be responsible for it. We do pay a fee, an annual fee for the networking service if we do decide to make it network capable. I think it was 200. It was in a previous report. I think
It's a small amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's 200 or so, and I think that might be a future decision for council once we
Yeah.
sort out the installation.
Yeah.
To have it either networked, well, to have it networked and also the decision to make it a pay-per-use service,
Or not, yeah.
or not.
Anyway, if it gets run over, we get
And
an
the
extra
hydro
one.
bill is our responsibility.
Sorry?
The hydro bill.
Is our responsibility, yes.
Is there an option to put a pay system on that unit, or would you have to buy another unit?
No, there is an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's for council to decide.
Yeah, see how it rolls.
Now, could I'd suggest, now that I've had my cat fixed, that maybe staff report back in a year after it's installed to see, usage. We can get Bylaw to look at how often it's used, because they're right now gathering data for parking generally. They've been going down here at least once or twice a week. We could get Bob to look out the window and check it out.
Yeah, I think we had it before.
I think if we have a better idea of how much is being used, is it worth having it as a paid charging station or not, we'll have better stats in a year's time.
Yeah. Perfect,
So I'll move it.
thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion, or any last question, all in favor? Thank you. Going electric.
Take that egg on.
Oh, too loud. Okay, Emma, don't go too far.
Oh my goodness, this cat is very friendly.
Where does this cat come from?
She must have
It's
been
Bob's cat.
Definitely Bob's job.
He talked to it nicely and tried to get it to go away, so it's coming. You should see his cat. Yeah,
The
I
cat
have met his cat, actually. Yes. This is the
Okay,
talk
cats
of
are
herding cats. This is
which.
what it comes to.
She or he heard us earlier.
Out you go. Go home.
That's no way to talk to Bob.
Oh. Now he comes back in. Okay.
Is it okay to?
Yes, please. proceed.
Sorry, Emma.
Okay, just bringing a development variance permit application for introduction. This is DDP 03 2019 for 1477 Peter Road. The location is in the Eagle Cliff neighborhood on the east side of the island, shown here. And this is the lot right here. There is an existing two-story house located at the top of the lot. And as with most waterfront lots, this topography slopes quite steeply down to the water. It is a small lot, and most of it is actually within the 30-meter setback to the sea. The application is proposing an addition to the house that is outside of the 30-meter setback, but within the front 7.5-meter setback. The proposed addition is to enable the conversion of an existing guest room into a master bedroom on the main floor of the house to facilitate aging in place. And in order to do this, the application is asking for a reduction in that front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.9 meters. These are the elevations of the addition, and from the west, this is a photograph with the red showing approximately where that addition would sit. And the north elevation is actually the side that faces Cedar Road. It's kind of dark in this photograph here, actually, I guess. But Cedar Road is here, and you should be able to make out that the house is quite a bit below the grade of the road and also separated by a fence. This is the proposed location. This is the location of the proposed addition, which is pretty much almost fully screened from public view.
There's no proposal to move the fence, correct?
The fence will actually have to be removed. Let's see.
But not its location. I mean, it won't go back except in the same spot.
The fence is actually not on the property line. It goes almost directly into where the proposed expansion is, so the fence will be moved. So, at the time this presentation was prepared, there were 5 letters of support received. I believe there are several more on table. And these are all from adjacent neighboring properties. Internal referrals did not have any concerns, and given the very constrained building envelope on this small lot and the fairly modest expansion for aging in place, this staff is recommending that this application be authorized for public notice and consideration at the June 24th meeting.
Alice?
Given the presentation by Mr. Atherton and given the significant number of letters of support, and I think the misunderstanding of the one that was objecting because of the fence, I would like to suggest that we do it at the first meeting in June, which is June the 10th. I'm just tracking 14 days.
If I may just respond, just from a staff perspective, it's not supported, and I'm sorry, Mr. Atherton, but it's our regular due process, and I'm concerned that we'd be setting a precedent if we fast track.
So?
Yeah, so we can discuss it. I'd like to put the recommendations on the floor. So I'd like to move that notice be given that council will be considering the issuance of development permit, variance permit DVP 03/2019 for the variance of the front line, lot line setback from 7.5 meters to 3.9 meters for 1477 Cleater Road, legally described as Lot B of Lot 5, Block 6 to 8, District Lot 1552, Group 1, NWD, Plan BCP 25140, PID 026759560 at the June 24th, 2019 meeting of council. That's a lot of numbers for a very small lot.
Yeah.
That's bigger than the lot.
And that council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of the development variance permit DVP 03/2019 in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act to all properties within 100 meters of the legal boundary of 1477 Cleater Road, legally described as Lot B of Lot 5, Block 6 to 8, District Lot 1552, Group 1, NWD, Plan BCP 25140, PID 026759560. And I just want to say a few words about this. I'm familiar with the neighborhood, having lived in the Eagle Cliff neighborhood for a couple of years, and visiting people since. And I'm not sure I know the exact house, but I know how many houses are kind of in there in a unique conformation related to the lot lines and setbacks, and I don't think this would be out of place, and I think it's a reasonable ask and recommendation. So I'm in support of putting it through the due public process.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Thank you. Get her done as soon as we can, Marie. Thank you.
Never get a no until you ask the question.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Emma, one more time. Thank you.
All right, this is a report on the tender submissions received for the multi-use project phase 1. And a quick background, multi-use path is a priority project coming out of the transportation plan. It is to cross the island from east to west, connecting residential neighborhoods on both sides with beaches and the cove, other key destinations across the island. And it is meant to take place over several phases in the next 15 years. Phase 1 is located near Charlie's Lane. It is a sharp bend, as you can see here, and it is phase 1 because it is the most challenging and dangerous section of the multi-use path. and consequently also the most costly. Given the constraints, it is up against a fairly steep rock face on the inside corner and drops off steeply to a riparian area, an environmentally sensitive area on the outside of the corner. This project is about 180 meters in length, and this is the engineering drawing here that you see. The estimates that we got from our engineer, Creus Engineering, was a total project cost of $360,000. Out of that, $245,000 was the estimate for construction. With these documents, we went out for tender in the month of April, and we received 2 submissions, one from North Construction and one from BA Blacktop. As you can see, the amounts that we received were significantly more than what was estimated from our engineer. With the 2 submissions, North Construction has much more experience working in challenging terrains and building walls as part of the road construction. And BA Blacktop, their specialty is paving and asphalt, and correspondingly their asphalt prices were much lower. However, you can see North Construction is significantly lower than BA Blacktop, and given the actual challenging terrain of this project, that is the submission that staff will be going into detail with. As mentioned before, our initial construction estimate was $245,000, which means it was underestimated by 336 almost. Very significant. Overall, our project is now $270,000 over budget. And I'm just going to break down the 3 main costs that were significantly over budget in the North Construction bid. The biggest one is the lock block walls that would be needed to retain that steep slope down to the riparian area that was pointed out earlier. So all of these little squares are lock blocks, and Creus used a unit price of about $225 per block, and North Construction used about $700. So significantly more, totaling $47,000 for Creus and about $147,000 in the North estimate. The second price over budgeted was for asphalt, and I don't think this was any fault of Creus. Asphalt prices in general have gone up significantly across the region. So the Creus estimate was 67, almost 68,000, and the North estimate was 126. Again, quite significant. North does need to subcontract the asphalt out to BA Blacktop, as mentioned before, the other bidder. But even then, the premium for that is about 30,000, so we're still significantly over budget. And the last item that was significantly underestimated was the hand railing, which was budgeted at $12,000 by Creus and came in at $46,000 from North. And discussing this with Creus, I did not actually get a satisfactory answer as to why there was a significant difference. So all in all, we are looking at a significant ask for additional budget in order to proceed with this project. But I would like to point out that the prices we did receive from both North and the Blacktop do seem reasonable given the challenging terrain, the risk involved, the environmental mitigation needed. And the fact that the engineering estimate was vastly underestimated was not expected, and hence why we're so over budget. It is unfortunate, but at this point, given the trends of escalating construction prices and escalating asphalt prices, staff anticipates the cost of this project to go up significantly with each year. And given the substantial amount of funding that we do have approved from external sources, if we were to proceed with this project, staff recommends that we do that this summer.
Is that it, Emma?
Unless you have any questions.
Oh, yeah. Rob?
Is this questions or comments?
Both.
Both, okay. I'm going to be supporting this. I know it's quite a big difference. And I'm a bit disappointed with the engineering company's estimates, but anyway, we'll see if we use them again. But, no, yeah. We knew this was going to be the most challenging part. This has been what's been holding up this project. I think I was first made aware of this before the election by Councillor Fass, who sent me a YouTube video about 35 years ago of people pushing for this cross-island pathway. I know the amazing work that's been done by staff to get these grants, and the vast majority of money is still coming from outside. And I think we will probably be able to get more money moving forward as we move through this tricky section for future phases. So I definitely do not want to jeopardize that. I think we're in this, we need to move forward, and I think waiting would be a mistake as well, because I just see the prices going up and up, and potentially we could use this funding, which I think has to be used within 2 or 3 years, or fairly.
It would have to be done this summer.
It has to be done this summer, so I mean, yeah, so I'm gonna approve moving forward with that.
Allison?
Can you outline the funding and the timeline on each of them? Because I thought TransLink was giving us 4 years to do our funding. Development.
Yes, that's true. We were approved in 2017, so it would expire March of 2020.
2021.
So, yeah, 2021, if it was approved in what time frame in 2017? And 17 and 4 is 21 in my reading.
I think 17, 18, sorry. I'll have to double check that.
If it's
then.
4.
It's 4, it's
I thought
21.
I looked at the contract and it said 2020, but let
So,
me double check that.
but each one of TransLink has given us 2 amounts of funding, if I'm understanding
Yeah.
correctly.
If you could review the funding.
Yes, we,
Yeah.
so when we're approved for a project, we can continue to apply for funding every year within the 4-year time frame.
So how, can you just, this, I mean, I'm sort of used to saying fund amount, date, what do you gotta do, next fund amount, date, and so forth, and I'm having trouble figuring out from the narrative which one, and the BC bike one, when does it have to be spent by?
The Bike BC has to be spent by September
Of this year?
Yes.
And
And
how
that
much?
amount was
135,000, wasn't it?
130 something, yes. I think it is in the report.
So how much in total, you said substantial amount, but,
We have 293,000 in grant funding and 42,000 from the municipality for that project
and
currently.
the total budget now is?
340. I mean, my numbers come up to 335, so I'm out by about 5,000 in the numbers I just
I
gave.
thought we were
we're-
270,000 over.
We are.
So, yeah, so what we've got here, Allison, is we've got a current budget of
Well, I'm
$340,000.
talking about the tender amount, it's 600,000, right?
So we need so with the tenders, we need an additional 270,000 in funding, right?
So roughly half of the funding has come from outside sources, not a substantial.
That's,
So
it
far.
would be half after, if,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I guess I'm going to just, I can't support this. We haven't said where the money's gonna come from in this resolution. And it can't come from the capital renewal and replacement fund because it's not allowed to spend it on new projects.
Actually, the resolution does ask for the funding to come from the Community Works Gas Tax Fund and the Road Maintenance and
Well,
Renewal.
the resolution I have on my agenda.
I believe there was a revised recommendation on
Under
that.
yellow, 7.4.
I'm looking to find yellow stuff.
Paragraph
So it's
2.
in the middle.
You provided it on to the version of the report that updated.
With the,
But I guess, my druthers all along has been to start where the path is and just keep working westward. It's equally as awkward trying to pass people, or people biking on the flat bit from where the hydro path ends now, all the way to that corner. And we've had more near misses on that part than we have had at the corner. So I can't support an additional 270,000 for that corner. I think we should go back to TransLink and Bike BC and change the location of where we build it.
That's not an option.
Why not?
because we can only use the funding for the project that's been applied for. I've already asked.
You've asked BYLAWS and Translate,
Yes,
and they said no?
it would be considered a different project, or at least a different phase of the project. We're calling the entire project multi-use path, but each phase can only be applied for funding one phase at a time. Just,
David first.
Okay, this is really disappointing, obviously, but the transportation plan has been counting on this for a long time. And in terms of the structure of the phasing, Alison, that's been council in recommendations for a long time. So that's already down. We shouldn't be talking about, changing the nature of the project. And so, from a safety perspective, from an active transportation perspective, this project is extremely important. And if we were to back out of this, we're losing, $270,000 that would go towards it, but we would also lose credibility to be able to keep working on this for the next phase and the next phase and the next phase. This is a difficult job because, our road allowances aren't big, we've got steep terrain. To be able to have an active transportation path across our island is really a challenge. And, I feel that it's really unfortunate we got that estimate that was just so wildly off, but nevertheless, we're getting more than half of this paid for. And it's a tough start. And as Emma says, we agreed a long time ago to get this really difficult part done. And it will set that path in motion. We know we've got some other parts that are much simpler. We've got agreed upon parts to work on, past Grafton Lake, for example. But this is an important start, and I'm supporting it, even though I'm very disappointed in the work of Chris.
Maureen?
To start, in your report, you mentioned that the width of the trail can't be reduced. How was that option explored?
the minimum standard for multi-use path is 3 meters, set by Transportation Association of Canada, which both funding sources go by. And our actual engineering design reduced that to 2.4 already. So that was challenging during the application for the funding for staff to have to support the reduced width. So I've already gone through that process with both TransLink and BYLAWS. So it was very clear any further reduction would make it ineligible.
Okay, thank you. I'm sympathetic to Alison's position in this, and I don't like feeling that way, sorry.
I won't be insulted, but anyhow.
I thought I'd be blunt. This increase is going to, my understanding is correct, it's going to completely exhaust the Community Works Reserve and the R&R Reserve?
That's what's, yeah, we have another request. It will exhaust the Community Works Reserve, but we should also be spending the Community Works monies that we receive, because we need to report back on those to UBCM as well. So we should be identifying projects that they can be used for as a funding source. And right now, that is the only funding source that we have for new infrastructure, really speaking. So.
And the flow of money into those reserves, is it annual or?
The Community Works Reserve, we have an annual contribution of about $66,000 that goes into that reserve that comes to us from UBCM or from the governments. This year there was a double. We received double the amount. So on the schedule I had
So
shared.
it's the gas tax?
Yeah, the gas tax
Okay.
is called the Community Works Reserve is the gas tax funding.
Okay. So it's not a matter of we've spent 20 years saving money up in those reserves and are just going to spend it all in one shot. There actually will continue to be.
Yeah, we've just started rebuilding that up. I believe we exhausted that when we had gone over budget on the Miller Road expansion. We were looking for funding sources when we did the sewer upgrade. And so we had, I believe, that was just around the time I had started working here, that we had used what the available funds in that reserve and other reserves well, basically, what was available in that reserve was used as part of the solution for the overrun on the sewer up, what was it, Miller Road?
Yeah.
Sewer expansion project.
Sewer expansion.
You're referring to the community works reserve when you're saying that
Yeah.
reserve.
Yeah. And then just my final question, just trying to find this here again. The caution in here, the file says Raj comment. The caution is, where is it? Council should keep in mind that there are other major critical infrastructure replacement and renewal funding needs, such as deferral of replacement of the pumper truck and potential increases in the approved budgets for the replacement of the culverts. And we already, at the next week, do we already have news of the culverts?
Actually, when I had written that comment, I had in error identified the infrastructure funding reserve as a funding source. And so that comment was with respect to the capital renewal and replacement reserve. We can't use the capital renewal and replacement reserve, so the recommendation is actually using the available funds in the community works reserve,
Okay.
and the balance is coming out of the roads maintenance and renewal.
So you're saying this
Reserve.
comment no longer applies?
It no longer applies
This
based on the
project.
revised, yes.
Okay, so this project is not having an impact on decisions?
On the capital renewal and replacement reserve, it's not.
Okay.
So, yeah, to be clear, this won't be impacting Bob's regular roads maintenance budget, is that correct?
It should not, because on his annual request, no.
Okay, so if
It's
he
not.
needs to spend the full amount on the culverts, that's not gonna impact, this decision won't impact that. The next one is I'm wondering, how will it impact council's next decision with Cardina Road? Is, if they agree to this, will that preclude,
No, Cardina, actually, we have a balance of almost $200,000 in the community works. So we're basically, reports that are coming forward to council tonight, 112 of the 200 is being requested for this project right here, and the other 85 is being requested for Cardina.
okay, so, I mean, this is what the mayor and I have been discussing during the agenda review, so this decision won't impact the next decision about Cardina Road that council has to make.
No.
I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, no, they're in conjunction with each other, they support each other.
Just one wee bit of a follow-up. If those projects do run into further cost overruns, where would the money come from?
It would have to come from one of our reserves. I would say after we funded these, we have an available balance of 621 in the roads maintenance and renewal reserve. And we will have we will have contribution in the subsequent year that will be allocated to that reserve as well.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you for this report, and I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right page. So this is the
Yeah.
new one, and this is the resolution 17-249-79 is the one that you're recommending? Is that right?
No, it's the one that's in the recommendation section.
I think, yeah, that was a background resolution.
Oh, sorry, okay, that's why I'm checking, I'm going, this doesn't look right, okay, thank you. Because I'm speaking in support of continuing on and completing the construction of this multi-use pathway phase 1. I'm somebody who's been, and I'm prepared to move the motion, I've been working on this for on and off for the 30 years that you were mentioning, having been on the Parks and Rec Commission 30 years ago that tried to get something like this going in. And at that point, Charlie's Lane was, that corner was such a safety hazard for everybody using the road, including the kids trying to bicycle to school and all that kind of thing. So, you know, I won't do a whole big song and dance. People have said a lot of the good things and asked a lot of the good questions. Thank you for clarifying that about the width as well. But for climate action and children's safety, everybody's safety, bike riding, economic benefits, and affordable transportation for people to get around on the island, I'm going to move the motion. Whereas Council has approved $340,000 for multi-use path phase 1, And whereas submissions for the multi-use path phase 1 invitation to tender reference 17115. Is this okay? You guys happy with this?
Go ahead, get on the table.
Okay, I'm just making sure I'm reading the right thing. 17115 have been reviewed by staff and the project engineer and exceed the available budget. Therefore, be it resolved that council approve an increase of $270,000 to the approved budget for multi-use path phase 1 to a total approved budget of $610,000, with the increase to be funded from the Community Works Reserve, $120,000, gas tax funding, I think that's very appropriate, by the way, and from the Roads Maintenance and Renewal Reserve, $150,000. Therefore, be it resolved that council approve the award of the multi-use path phase 1 invitation to tender reference number 17115 to North Construction at a total cost not to exceed $580,716 plus GST, and that the CFO be instructed to include the increase in the multi-use path phase 1 budget fund from the Community Works Reserve and the Roads Maintenance and Renewal Reserve in the fall financial plan amendment.
Second that.
Actually, can we revise that recommendation?
Sure.
What we need is 112,700 from the Community Works Reserve. You had read out 120.
That's what's in
so-
the resolution.
Pardon?
Oh,
Can we change the?
112.
Sorry, I have to ask you, Kathy, can we change the resolution?
112,000 instead of
112,700,
700.
yeah, and 157,300 from the roads maintenance and renewal.
157,300.
Yes, for
Okay.
the total of 270.
Okay. You got that, Paul?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second that,
You got a second on that, okay, just further discussion. Emma, when was that CREAS estimate given?
It was reviewed in November of 2018.
2018, so a year and a half.
No,
No.
6 months.
6 months. 5 months.
6 months, yes.
This is
Yeah.
2019.
I asked for the.
So the
review report.
price of asphalt's gone up 100% in 6 months. I'm absolutely sickened by these overages, absolutely sickened. You know, in the last 3 years, we probably had $1 million of overestimates.
Underestimate.
Huh?
Underestimate.
Well, yeah, underestimates, but overpaying. I mean, Snug Cove House for the sewer down there was an extra $400,000. I mean, we really have to review our engineering estimates because they're just out of sight. How can we possibly do any kind of planning, any kind of budgeting with these overruns? I mean, I know, you know, I want this thing to go ahead as well as everybody else, but I get back to the same thing and I go, this is just a small section of it. And you can say that this is the hardest section and it's gonna cost the most amount of money. But I still see us signing blank checks for something that could be $7 million. And we're chasing all the grants, but half the grants we have to match. And, you know, I don't know where the funding is gonna come from. We have to be so careful on this. Go ahead.
So as staff, my only experience with engineering companies on Bowen is with CREAS.
Yeah.
And they have consistently underestimated projects in what I've seen. So for the next project, I would strongly encourage exploring other options. As far as this estimate goes, based on my discussions, the largest underestimate was on the lock block wall. And the explanation I received with their unit pricing is that they got that from comparable construction on Bowen for lock block wall construction. But they didn't take into account the escalated risk being beside a riparian area and building on a steep slope of unknown composition, which, when we discussed with North Construction, is how they explained their pricing. And CREAS came back and said, well, actually, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why we didn't think of it.
Well, you know, I don't really care how the mistakes.
No,
took
I'm just
place.
saying that there should have been due diligence done and that there should have been a more accurate estimate. They had the information, to give us a better, more
Yeah,
accurate.
well, whether it happened or not, we're in a situation now where
Yeah.
we're
So
depleting all our reserves.
Yeah,
And I'm not
just
happy
addressing
about
your
it.
concern, because it's
Yeah.
the same one I have, moving
Yeah.
forward with these type of projects, I will be seeking a company that can provide a higher level of confidence, because that is the estimate I take out for our funding applications too, meaning we lost out on significant amount of funding.
Yeah,
So hopefully, in the future, we get a better engineering company.
certainly gotta be a lot more careful, and I think we really have to look at where the path is going and be very strategic about it, because we can't be spending this kind of money on the path, or else we're gonna have to drag it out over about 25 years. Good morning.
Just a question concerning one of the points, one of the bullet points. It says the bidder had concerns with steep grade and unknown material on the slope for the block wall. And you mentioned that, but they're not quite sure, or they weren't quite sure what the material was. Are they confident now that they actually know what they're dealing with there?
They can't be until they actually fully excavate. So even if testing were done and it's localized,
At any point, did they say this is not a good place to do this?
they said it was challenging. Yeah, and I think with terrain like that, you can never be 100% of, sure what you have, and that is why the price is so high. As you recall, it's about 3 times the price of a normal site, and that's why it's built into that cost.
Is there any recourse on that? Like, let's say it goes really well. Bob, I guess that's a question for you.
No.
Bob
No,
has
that's
said
it.
from the
It's a
beginning
done
that
deal,
it's
yeah.
gonna be a lot
Yeah.
more than what they
Well,
anticipated.
Yeah, anybody, any further comments? And also you want to say something?
Well, I'm just looking at the report here and I'm having a little trouble with the numbers. We're awarding a contract for 580, but all the documents seem to support a lower number.
I think so, that was North's estimate.
Well, I don't know, I've got a handwritten document in here and it's got 528 including GST, and we get our GST back.
Oh, yeah, for that, yeah.
So,
Well,
and
there's the
that's
same.
528, and then we've got 580 for the award, so, is there something missing?
The bid was for 580,716, and talking with Public Works, I was told to factor in GST on top of that.
Okay, so I don't have, on page 7 or 8 of the report, there's a tender price including GST of 528. And then we've got a total project budget of 610, so I guess it's the difference between 580 and 610, 30,000 we've already spent, and what have we spent it on?
Can I just say that the motion as it's on the floor says at a total cost not to exceed,
580.
so it doesn't say exactly 580, 716.
I can speak to that if that's what you think that's what you're looking at. The tender was put out with certain items they're asking for, and the 503 was the number to meet those items. But after that was issued, there was an addendum to address additional items that weren't captured. And so that was an additional cost on top of the original tender cost in the following pages. So the actual total construction cost was 580.
So, quickly.
Just a quick one, is that I view this as an investment in a climate disturbed future where we need to take climate action, and we need to build the infrastructure so that people can do the active transportation and the carbon related things. And it's, I think this kind of infrastructure, once built, costs less to maintain. I hope that's true. than vehicle infrastructure. So I would like to be subsidizing active transportation like we subsidize roads. And so this is why I'm in support of this motion.
If I could just say, sorry, that staff is confident in the tenders that were submitted, that the budgets are good. We know that the costs aren't going to go down or something along this line.
And also to add on what you're saying, Sue Ellen, the transportation plan is heavily focused on improving active transportation on the island because that's what we heard from the community and because that's what's sorely lacking on the island right now. And the multi-use path is essentially the spine of all the other active transportation infrastructure, improving pedestrian access across the island as well as cycling. If we don't move forward with the multi-use path, then we don't move forward with the next plan.
No, basically, if we choose to move forward with this today, the rest of it's going ahead.
You have at least the option of the future projects in the transportation plan.
I'll just add one more thing or pick up what Emma was saying. The island survey that we did a year or so ago, I was on council at the time, I read it, and one of the most, and I used to actually know how many comments, but one of the most commented items was a path across the island for cycling, make the roads safer. Was one of the most common things that I saw.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just whining about the money, that's all.
I agree with winding out the money too.
And I think we also need to really take into account the Grafton Lakes development that's getting built there, and there's gonna be kids living there, and how are they gonna get to the school? Even walking there is very dicey as it is, so. And I just wanna dovetail with, Emma also said that this is so central to our transportation plan that we would literally have to go back and redo the transportation plan if we don't move ahead in that. I don't wanna go back down that road as well, and lose the money that we have coming in right now from outside, so.
Down that pathway.
Good point, good point. Okay, any further discussion? We gotta bring this to a close here. I'll ask the question, all in favor? Opposed? Councilman Morris, position.
Totally.
All right.
Council, and I started
Hmm? All right. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
If you beat you up enough, you can go home.
Thanks for
Bob Robinson,
all your hard
Public
work.
Works. Yes, thank you very much. Okay.
Come on, Marie. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm presenting a budget increase for the Cardina Drive upgrade. The original budget that Creas and myself got up and put together was $475,000, so council has actually approved that in our budget. We had 3 contractors come over for a tender. Only one actually bid on it, and that's BA Blacktop. Their tender came in at 607, although Emma's tender and my tender, I can take things out of my tender that won't affect it. I can't change a tender, but I can take things out. One of the big costs was paving stones. We got a grant, and we have to make our sidewalk 3 meters wide to get it. So if you start looking at paving stones 3 meters wide, that's I think in the tender was $140,000. So I've talked to BA Blacktop, asking them, we're gonna take that out of the tender.
Okay.
So that decreased it, so the total cost, and there'll be a couple of other things I'll be able to remove also. So the total cost will be $558,150 plus GST. So that's an increase of $95,000 over my budget.
But a lot better than what was originally there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been, what was it originally? That was 100.
607.
Yeah. Okay.
And so,
So this, in the recommendation then in number 2 here, instead of 558, 150 plus GST, what should it read?
No, that is the problem. The original tender was 607
Thank you.
plus GST.
Just making sure.
Yeah, no. So we plan to do this in the fall because of the herons, and I just can't do it in the summer. So it'll be crazy with all this.
Yeah, understood.
Now, I'm looking at two different options with the paving stones. I can still put paving stones in. It'll still be quite a bit of money, not as much as in this tender with a local person. Or we could switch it and we could do a paved sidewalk, which,
Yeah.
And I think, Bob, when you and Emma and I met about this, and from your perspective, mobility, et cetera, paved is a better option than paving stones anyways, correct? Is that, yeah. Bob was concerned about Snug Cove design guidelines, but Emma, that building is exempt?
That long,
Yeah.
What happens if you do press pavement? Does that work?
stamp asphalt,
Yeah.
you can do that.
Yeah.
But then
So it's
you're
a-
creating little water pockets and everything
Yeah.
under the stamp.
Okay, Rob?
So, no change in dimensions?
Nope,
It was just a physical material? that-
yeah, the materials, and they got a company from the mainland to,
Right.
you know, with their tender, and it's just unbelievable expensive.
What do you think the difference is if we went local with the paving stones? Is it?
Likely half the price. It's still quite a bit. So, but I would likely, with talking to Emma and that, I would likely put asphalt down.
That's fine.
And that'd be quite a bit cheaper. That's $34 a square meter.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm totally in support of asphalt, not paving stones. If you look at the sidewalk that's on, the paving stones heave and it's easier for people to trip and that sort of stuff. So the asphalt is much better. And I've got numbers game here again.
Okay.
You've talked about an additional increase of 95.
Yes.
The total approved budget to 570. So what's the difference between 558 and 570? Is that money we've already spent?
Yes,
Okay,
in engineering.
all right. And where's the other 10 going to come from? Because on the reserve spreadsheet.
Where's the other?
That Raj gave us earlier at the committee of the whole, there's only 85,000 coming out of the community works fund, and then along with the 112 that Emma just got, that brings it to 0. So where's your other 10 coming from?
Raj.
Right, that chair.
I will have to identify, I will have to take the other 10 out of the roads and maintenance renewal reserve then. In my projection here, I only had 85 coming out, not 95. I don't know how I missed that.
Any further discussion?
I'll move it.
Okay,
I'll second it.
great. Further discussion, no? I'll ask a
Well, now
question.
Hope's got to have the motion changed somewhat.
I don't think so.
No?
Yes.
What?
With an increase to be funded from the community works gas funding,
Oh, that, yeah.
85,000 and 10,000 from the roads maintenance and renewal funding.
True, that, yeah.
All right.
Did you get that one?
Yes.
Good, Allison.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask a question as amended, all in favor? Allison, thank you. Oh, it's unanimous. And then we'll move on to the next one, Bob.
Could I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
It's just a point in the report, Bob. You said that the bidder had concerns with some unknown items in the storm works. In
Yes.
the Grafton Road tie-in. What is that?
Sorry, it should be the Bowen Island Road tie-in, so
Okay.
the one sidewalk I have, I would have to put a catch basin there, but I have to run across the road to tie into the existing storm sewer. And
Okay.
we don't know where it is.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so the next one, road overlays.
This one isn't quite as bad.
Yeah. This is
So this is our annual road overlays that we actually do every year. In the budget, we usually set aside $450,000. We identified Deep Bay as to do that road, there's rocks sticking out, and I don't think it's ever been paved since I've been here anyways. I don't know when the original was. So we wanted to do Melmore, Senator, Lenora, Senator Place, and then there was 3 roads last year that didn't get done. They run out of time. A little piece of Creek Road, Hillcrest, and the bottom part of Artisan Lane. There seems to be more patching than there is pavement anymore. So the Artisan Lane just goes up to the cul-de-sac. It goes right in there. So from the main road to the cul-de-sac. So there was 3, we put out a tender, 2 bidders submitted a bid. The 3rd bidder was an hour and a half late. So we're recommending that All Roads Construction. We've never used this company before. They're about $10,000 cheaper than BA Blacktop, but with me asking for extra money on all the other roads, I better stick with the lowest bidder.
So there's just a little difference, and you might have said something here that the amount of 280 is what they had on the bid, and then the 450, and how does that catch up again?
Well, so whereas council approved $450,000 in the 2019 budget,
Yes.
I'm asking to do the road overlay for $280,000.
But Bob, you're gonna be coming back at a future date.
Yes, because there's a couple other smaller roads that are, Bolton Road has to be one that, but I can't pave it, I have to do other things with it.
Okay.
So currently, he's asking to spend 280 of the 450,000 budget.
But his intention is to
Yes.
spend the full amount of budget.
Yep.
So the Miller Road culverts, or the Grafton, the Mount Gardner Road culverts aren't being covered off at all in that 450?
No,
Something else, already approved that.
No, but I didn't, I don't have I didn't look at details of the financial plan. The overages is coming out of somewhere else.
I will read the recommendation, whereas council approved $450,000 for the 2019 Public Works Roads and Infrastructure Capital Renewal Budget, and whereas submissions for BIM IT 2019-150 invitation for tender for various road overlays has been reviewed by staff, therefore it be resolved that council approve the award of BIM IT 2019-150 invitation to tender for various road overlays to All Roads Construction Limited in the amount of $280,490. $280,490.
Plus GST.
Plus GST, plus GST. Robert, thank you, number 2. And any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, thanks, Bob. Yeah.
3.4 is tourism.
Okay, so we're just going to get it a second a bit and just go back and do the consent agendas. And we'll only start with 3.4.
Starts on page
So
25.
Raj, that's the 4-year agreement with Tourism Bowen Island. And I think in recent emails that we've received today from Tourism Bowen Island, they still want to come forward for a future service agreement, and I don't know if that's through core funding, but they would be more comfortable with a 1-year agreement versus a 4-year agreement. So staff, I think, are recommending proceed with the motion with a 1-year agreement and a 0 added on to the 20,000.
Are they looking for a 4-year term for the space?
I think they probably are, but I think at this stage, if we just do 1 year, staff will go back and have a conversation with them. I expect they'll be applying for core funding.
Or for more fund. I think the other side is they don't want to be limited to $20,000 for years 2, 3, 4.
We need to have those direct
Yeah.
conversations with them.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm guessing too, but I'm guessing.
Reason,
So you just want to change the 4 to 1?
I think
yeah.
that
So change 2019 to
2020.
Just leave it as 2019.
Yeah.
2019 to 2020.
I would just put for 2019.
For 2019.
Well, it doesn't end until March 31st or April 30th of 2020.
Correct.
So, and then the word, where, just before April 30th, this line above it, if it could say 1 term
Yeah.
instead of
Be a 1-year term.
April 30th, 20.
And we can cross out the word annually in the very first line.
Yes.
Oh,
Got all
you
that?
happy with those?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You wanna read it?
Actually, I want to postpone it. Here's why. Well, I'm not sure. Actually, my concern is that when Tourism Bowen came to present to us at the previous council meeting, Tourism Bowen, they talked about how they're doing destination management. They talked about how they're managing visitors. They talked about how a need for a more comprehensive visitor management plan is needed and more funding. And yet, in the attachment A, or whatever that Schedule A is of the license of occupation of the Boulevard Cottage, the things that are in that, oh dear, where is it? There it is. It's on page 30, page 30, if anybody wants to know that. Under 2 general, it talks about promotion of Bowen as a local visitor, as a visitor destination. It talks about answering questions and guidelines and liaising with industry associations and marketing and some other good things, including collecting statistical information. But it doesn't include that part about provide visitor management as well as tourism promotion to moderate the impact of increased tourism visitation to Bowen Island. So I'd like to propose that if we pass this, that we add a G under A, B, C, D, E, F in the Schedule A, Visitor Information Services. Add a G that reads, provide visitor management services as well as tourism promotion to moderate the impact of increased tourism visitation to Bowen Island. Anyway, otherwise I'm remembering that 15 years ago or so, it was Bowen Heritage that was providing these services as a volunteer organization with grants from the province, and I'm recognizing that the value besides the $15,000 that they're asking for is also the use of the building, and that's pretty significant outlay from the municipality, so I think it's justified to ask for the visitor management that they themselves talked about. And I gather there's been an email come in with a report that Jody talked about last time, 13th of May, that we don't have in front of us, so I feel like maybe it's got more detail in that report, and that's also why I feel justified in asking for this additional G.
I would suggest deferral.
Postponing it might give us a chance to have a look at that report.
I think we have to also understand what their ask is, because we're getting mixed signals from them.
Okay, all right.
Can I get ask a question?
Of course.
Where you were quoting reference to promoting Bowen Island somewhere in this Schedule A, and I guess I'm having trouble finding it.
It's at the end of Schedule A, Visitor Information Services, page 4 or 5.
Well, page 6 or 7. Tourism Bowen Island collects statistical information. Liaise with community festivals to ensure information is correct. Liaise with industry associations. Operate within established guidelines of Destination BC. Answer visitor queries. Grant local visitor information as well as general visitor information. So where's the promotion bit that Councillor Cass was talking about?
I'm not sure. The things you're reading seem to be a little different from the things
Yeah.
I'm reading,
No, I-
which is,
Well, I'm
One
reading
of-
Schedule A of the agreement.
so am I, and this is a little concerning. However, I'm thinking of item D, liaise with industry associations to involve with visitor marketing, and A, rack all local visitor information related to print materials as well as general information from outside areas, answer queries, all those other things. It's related to attracting visitors. Some of that material.
I just know that staff received an email probably an hour before the meeting that they did not want a 4-year term. I really don't know what's going on, and I would recommend deferral, so staff could have that conversation with Tourism Bowen Island, get a clear idea of what it is that their wants are, and hearing back from council as to what council would like to see in it.
I'd be fine with postponing. I guess.
Okay, so should we just defer that? We have a motion on the table. don't we?
I move that we postpone the discussion of 3.4
Until the next council.
until the next council.
So next council. Second. Both you got something there? Yeah. Okay, further discussion, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, I'm just going around all over the place, so get this,
3.6, oh, sorry, never mind.
Should we go, we got, guess the visitors, we split back to.
yes.
I thought we were trying to deal with Raj's things just in case.
Do we have another Raj?
Yeah, 3.6.
Oh, there is another, okay, 3.6.
It's just,
Oh, CARIP report,
I requested it be called, I just had a couple of questions. There's an account in the report of the uses that the CARIP grant funds were put to in 2016 to 2017. 2017, the funds were allocated for solar panels at the bike barn, but that wasn't enough money, the 4K. Do you know offhand what was needed?
I think they made them sold already. Was that it?
No, this was for the actual
Oh,
panels. If 4,000 was not enough, what would be enough? Do you know?
I would have to go back and ask, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
If you could find that out, that would be useful for Dave and me
Yeah.
at the Environment and Climate Action.
Yeah.
And then we can make a
Yeah.
decision around a recommendation around the current
yeah, thanks for it.
funds. The other thing is that on the weekend, there was a presentation by the Salish Sea Renewable Energy Co-op, and they do bulk buying of solar panels, and you can take out a membership. So
Okay.
we're thinking, they have corporate and individual memberships. If we're thinking of other buildings that would make use of solar panels, we should look into this. They're very credible. They work with pretty well all the Gulf Islands. They bulk buy, and they would be probably contracting with a company called VREC in Vancouver, which Sue Ellen and I have looked into in the past. It's very reputable and local.
and I could just add, this is the Salish Sea Solar Co-op is the group that we talked about when those of us who were at the last Union of BC Municipalities meeting met with BC Hydro, and I brought that up as an example of a worthwhile organization that should be allowed to continue with their arrangement with the net metering arrangement, and they still have it. So working with them has several pluses, including the reduced cost of buying panels when we get to that point.
Allison?
I've got a couple that I'm not quite sure what you mean. Question 47, which is on page 7 of the report, the second, hold a climate conversation with local businesses to increase use of compost.
It's
Or
supposed
to-
to be compostables,
Compostables.
Okay.
so the kind of campaign. would
Okay, so
be-
there's a typo there that needs to be fixed. I didn't know whether you were wanting to provide more composting in volume or use, so that needs to be, that typo needs to be fixed. And then the other was on question 53, 1, 2, 3, the fourth one, adopted and implemented the integrated transportation plan. I think that commenced implementation of, because we have lots of ways to go.
Yeah,
Sorry, Councilor Morse, which one was that?
it's right here.
53.
53 and 54, yeah. Adopted and commenced implementation of.
Do you want to read that recommendation one?
Oh, sure, yeah. The council approved the 2018 Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program CARIP report, and the council, as amended, and the council direct the Environment Climate Action Advisory Committee to discuss options for the disbursement of the 2018 CARIP grant funds. So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you, David?
Just a clarification question, is it to discuss options or to bring options to the disbursement to council?
Ordinarily, we bring recommendation to council, so we could revise it.
So I would move that we change that to recommend options for the disbursement of the 2018 CARIP grants to council, or recommend to council.
Sure.
Got that?
Accept that.
Yep, okay.
All right, last question, all in favor? Thank you, it's unanimous. All right, Allison, we're just gonna, you've got one more there that you want to talk about.
You can leave
Let's-
that. It's not
Okay,
gonna
let's
do
do
it wrong.
9.1, which is me, Chair of the Mayor's Standing Committee on Community Lands, a recommendation for next May 14th meeting. Now, this is from the Mayor's Standing Committee, obviously, and this is the resolution we came away with Birch at this time. And as you can see from the recommendation, and obviously Robin's happy with it, the Birch Board is happy with it. So, is there any questions about this?
There's no map in the packet.
Sorry, no map?
No map in the.
Well, it's on the northwest corner. Is that good enough or not?
There was a
Well,
link,
you're referencing a site plan dated May 10th, 2019.
there was a link in the PDF that took me to that map.
Yes, but it's not here in the agenda package.
206. It's in the package 206.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Okay, what page?
206.
Oh, it's in one of Tim, I knew I'd
Yeah.
seen it. It's in one of the letters from Birch or the,
Yes, we should have attached it directly to the resolution, or recommendation.
so it will get attached to the resolution
Yes,
when
we
it gets
will.
filed?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I just have a question about the question mark after easement for sewer connection. And I just wondered, I remember before we had talked about connecting to existing pathways and ways for pipes. Sort of, I'm on page 206, and this is the
Yeah.
top right of the illustration. There's just easement for sewer connection, a little question mark and a little arrow. And I wondered if that was because it was still outstanding or whether there were concerns about that.
Is that the library sewer connection that is
Could be.
referring to?
Yeah,
That's probably what that is.
Well, I think it's, what I remember originally was the fire hall was gonna connect up with these other buildings and, no?
Maybe it's the
We-
library.
we,
Probably
This is-
consider it, but we.
Raj and Bob and Hope and I have a meeting with Tina early next week to talk about the library, how we're gonna move forward with them hooking us to the sewer system.
Right, so that's probably, that is through the
Yeah.
fire.
All right, good, I remember all of that, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
This is nothing.
Any further discussion? All right. So I'm going to move the recommendation that council approve the site plan dated May 10, 2019 for a portion of Lot 3, Community Lands as presented by Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing, Birch, on behalf of Birch and the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation at its May 14, 2019 meeting, including allocation of 0.15 hectare for the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation on the northwest corner of Lot 3 along Miller Road, allocation of 0.15 hectares for Birch on the northeast corner of Lot 3 adjacent to the park, and then an expectation that all or most parking requirements be met on the lands allocated to Birch and Bowen Island Health Center Foundation.
I'll second.
All right, any further
Then I
discussion?
have another question.
Okay,
So,
Allison.
back to my original question, because the map is not attached. It's the northwest corner of Lot 3 adjacent to the portion designated.
Yes.
Because Lot 3 has not been subdivided at this point. So the northwest corner of Lot 3, if somebody's reading this, is right smack dab in the middle of the fire hall.
What's your suggested revision?
Well, it was in somewhere else, and I think it might have even been in.
But there is a site plan, right?
Yeah.
I think what I also haven't pointed out is that this recommendation prior to being brought forward was reviewed and tweaked by our solicitor as well.
Yes.
So because there was a reference in the minutes, I think, from the committee that talked about the lot line, the proposed lot line for the fire hall in that minute, so.
Well, I don't have a problem putting it in. This does reference a site plan dated May 10th, 2019.
Yeah, which does have, now, maybe he's thinking the fire hall site was already subdivided off.
That's right.
It's not.
So I think adding those words in would give a level of comfort.
Yeah,
Okay, Hope, after,
so the northwest corner of lot 3, abutting,
along Miller Road, adjacent to the
Adjacent to
fire
the
hall
fire hall.
boundary.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the same for the next one.
And the same for the other one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So?
My question is to do with the third bullet, an
Yep.
expectation that all or most of the parking requirements will be met on lands allocated to Birch and the Health Plan Foundation, but when I look at the map,
Yes.
it has red lines, and then below the red line, it says health center parking, and
Yeah, we amended that at the meeting as well. So that was presented and we amended that in the discussion.
Well, then
Because
this
those
is
are
the
just-
right map.
can a line be drawn through those little Birch resident parking and health center parking? That would just make it clear. So it didn't, right? See what I mean?
No, that will be drawn up in the lease agreement, the parking on the property.
Sure, I just want to make sure that the map that's being referred to matches what's on being announced. And I'm just suggesting that we make it clear for people a couple of years from now. So just draw a couple of lines through. I think that's reasonable to do.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. Everybody else okay? Sure. Okay, well, can you add that in? Or just make sure it happens?
We'll talk about what the attachment will be when we
Okay,
do the
attachment. Maureen?
Right.
Okay. So any further discussion? Last question, all in favor? Unanimous.
Well done, all
Awesome.
the hard work
Well
of
done.
all parties. Yes. Lots of hard work by everybody, that's great.
So,
One more.
The council
Thank you.
directs staff to expedite the draft agreement to lease.
Yeah, so part 2 of that is council direct staff to expedite the draft agreement to lease with Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing Birch for the 15.15 hectare portion of lot 3 as referred to the May 14th, 2019 Mayor Standing Committee. Community lands. And that staff present the draft agreement to lease to council no later than the June 24, 2019 regular council meeting. Second, and further discussion, no, I'll ask a question, all in favor? Thank you, unanimous. Good. Gonna do it, we're gonna do it fast. As fast as we go anyways. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, who is
Run with
Our free
it.
press.
She's waiting.
Journalism is here, yes.
Okay, new business. Let's crack it off here. Metro.
Thank you,
David.
guys.
Thank you, Clive, night night.
I'll be pretty brief. I was at 2 meetings. It was the Climate Action Committee. One of the interesting things was consultation on cannabis. But did I already talk on cannabis growing and processing? Did I talk about it?
Did you forget?
I don't think so.
There's
so-
been a press release from the province since our last meeting, so you probably should have.
I don't
Oh, yeah,
think
you did. I don't think you did.
Basically, like who knew? It's not just the odor; it's that it gives off volatile organic compounds, VOCs. That's the kind of stuff that gives off in paint thinner and stuff like that. That causes ground level ozone under heat if it combines with nitrous oxides of nitrogen. So anyway, so there's going to be a big public consultation to try to figure out, okay, what should be done about this. Some of the farmers are concerned because if you get into odors around farmlands, there are all kinds of other issues that might get raised. So there's all kinds of arguments on both sides of this, so you'll probably hear more about this.
You definitely didn't talk about that.
I didn't.
No, you definitely didn't, I remember.
Lions Bay, I mentioned, one of the things, a compensation review. Remember all the fuss last year?
Yes.
Okay, so there was a committee that reported out on that, and basically nothing's going to change, except for the directors for electoral area A. Remember?
Yeah.
So the salary is going up to recognize that actually it's a fairly significant job for salaries going up for that. In
That's
terms of-
Vancouver?
What's that?
Is that Vancouver or?
No, it's the University of
It's
BC.
Oh, the endowment.
Yeah, all that, yeah.
Yeah.
Then, in terms of your meeting fees, the thing is, the 30%, right? The 30% used to be non-taxable. To compensate for that, the meeting fees are a tiny fraction of everybody else's salary. And so presumably, people's salaries in the various municipalities are being adjusted because of that tax change, such as ours. And then they'll average all that out next year, and there will be a retroactive payment to recognize there'll be an increase of some sort for the meeting fee. In other words, everything's the same though.
Yeah.
The issue of pensions was going to be pushed off to UBCM to see if they want to do anything about it.
Oh,
And that was it. There were a couple other things, but let's move on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sue Ellen?
Island Trust Conservancy meeting, quarterly meeting was last week, and they're talking about looking into this new Canada Nature Fund and different kinds of funding streams that are coming on from the federal government, in part to address climate and ecological services provided by forests and to water and things like that, but also just biodiversity. And I won't go into too much detail. Financial Planning Committee is next week, so this will be when I'll see the first look at the reports that Island Trust is doing about the allocation of the tax requisitions and things like that, so I'll bring you back news about that. In June, Trust Council meets on Galliano Island, and you can find out some of the things about that are in 12.5 in our information item agenda. And then in September, Trust Council comes here to Bowen. So save up your questions and your ideas, and if you have suggestions for that meeting, let me know.
Super, thank you.
Is that?
Oh, one more thing, and that's that Bowen Island has a citizen who was nominated for the Stewardship Awards. Bruce Russell was nominated, so the competition will come to the June meeting.
Great.
Is the trust meeting before UBCM or after UBCM?
Before, I think it's just before. I can look.
The week of the 17th or 16th, something like that.
So directly the week before.
Yeah, I think it is.
Councillor Nicholson?
The Parks Committee met on the 15th of May. It was mostly staff giving reports, stock-taking reports. So this was sort of the center. They've developed a new annual report format. This takes the place of the visitation summaries that they used to produce. Crippen Regional Park visitation is up 4.5% over the year before. And we're sort of in the middle of the pack in terms of numbers of visitors, but that's a pretty significant increase. I think we're fourth from the top in terms of the percentage increases. There was dropped onto the agenda with very little notice a project called the Central Valley Blueway, and you may be hearing more about this. This was a late item and then given to us at the end of the meeting, and basically Michael Weed, the vice chair, was looking for some sort of indication of support from the Parks Committee before this went forward to Vancouver City Council. Procedurally, I wasn't comfortable with it, so I actually voted against it and said, you know, I would be more comfortable if this had come to us so that I could have a chance to read it. I'd never heard of it.
No, whereabouts is it?
Is this the flooding of False Creek and back in?
It's
Through
False,
into the city?
False Creek through to New Westminster. And I think it's probably a really good project, but it just,
Along that railroad line?
On the railroad there?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Still Creek and so on. But
The
it
old
just,
wetland and the drainage areas, it's resurfacing the creek,
yeah, it just was not,
tossed out there.
it wasn't introduced appropriately.
Yeah.
So there'll be a report that comes back to the committee with some more detail. What I was most concerned about was, other than not having a chance to review anything, there are significant land acquisition issues if this were to go through. And I don't know how that fits into the picture, and there was no discussion of it.
Oh.
So we had a committee that voted in favor of essentially finding out more and supporting this without knowing anything about the detail. So that was not a happy ending
So
for
it was
me.
supported in the end?
It was supported. It was supported prior to the Van City Council supporting it, which I thought was, procedurally, it's wrong from my perspective.
So it came out of Vancouver, did it? It came
It's
from Michael Lee?
Vancouver. It's the City of Vancouver project, and there's been conversations apparently with the mayor of New Westminster and Mayor Quitlam. I'm not quite sure
Burnaby.
how that fits in. Burnaby would make sense. So there's been conversation, but basically it was a political move so that somebody could go into a city council meeting and say Metro Park supports this, and it was transparently so. So I was on the screen here, but I was not happy with how it went and made that clear. Nobody else seemed to be bothered.
Sorry,
It's an interesting one because it relates to, as I understand it, to climate change and sea level rise and that kind of
Oh, yeah.
thing. So I'm sorry to see
And-
it get
and-
off to a bad
And
start.
lack of transportation. I don't think it got off to a bad start. I think it got off to a great start. I just didn't like the start.
Yeah.
It just,
Being asked to make a decision is something that's provided on the table.
yeah,
Yeah.
within like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Not good. Anyway, that was me.
Thank you, Maureen. Allison?
So last Friday, Mayor's Council met, and we had a report on the process. South of the Fraser is that's the Surrey rejigging of where the LRT is gonna go. So they started the public engagement process on that, and the province is doing a public engagement process on the George Massey Tunnel and what's gonna happen there, and they've done their public engagement, but that's all, they're next gonna meet with more stakeholders. And then we talked a little bit about where, trying to speed up some of the extra buses and some other things that are in phase 3 and maybe trying to get them done sooner. Staff's coming back with a report on how to do that. And then a very interesting report on fleet and service planning, and the buses, ridership is up and there's more and more overcrowding on the buses, and new buses have been ordered, and as they're arriving, they're going to different lines that are overcrowded. They're actually getting some double-decker buses, and the first electric buses have arrived and they're getting checked out and tried out. The new C-bus is here, but it's got a few kinks that have to be worked out. And there's more handy-dart vehicles being ordered, and there's more SkyTrain, some new SkyTrain cars have come, and then there's all, more being ordered, and they're being done through big enough order that there's interest in more than just one or two proponents bidding on it. And then the big thing was the announcement of the Cure Congestion campaign, which, similar to what was done with the provincial elections, getting everybody aware that we need federal funding for transportation. And so I've got some information on that I'll send everybody. And it's just, so it's, as the federal election campaign launches, we should be, there's some targeted questions to ask candidates and stuff. And of course, some of us went to the 2020 Transportation 2050. The survey is launched and is online, and I understood from what Shirley said at the meeting last Wednesday that we were going to get information so that we could post things on our municipal website and stuff.
Right, she
But
said that, yeah.
I haven't seen anything, so I will follow up
I
with
think
her.
I think most or not all of us went to that, because you went.
Yeah,
to
but
the-
this is a survey for the general public to
Yeah.
fill out.
Yeah.
And the questions are very interesting.
Yeah.
And not that easy to answer.
No.
When you pick 3 from 10, and,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I noticed when reading The Undercurrent, Rob and I do read it, There was an ad in there, in the Ferry Advisory Committee meeting with BC Ferries is on Tuesday at 5:30 at the library. So that's that.
All right, I think that covers the issue.
And
I just got a question for Allison.
Yeah?
Like, see, I'm getting all kinds of emails from that south of the Fraser train to Langley.
Oh,
and so on.
yeah.
And all the fuss about, the switch to SkyTrain, unbudgeted, but is that,
Well, this is the Sons of the Fraser Rapid Transit,
Yeah.
so the report, so that's the very first Mayor's Council meeting in December, I
Yeah.
guess. It was a weighted vote and it passed,
Yeah.
so, they're now redoing and, there's discussions going on about how we're gonna get compensated for the money that's already been spent and what Surrey's gonna have to put in and all that stuff.
I mean, the mayor's saying it can be done for the same prices.
Well,
It's just absurd.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. so-
And there is a group out there, there's a single track, so I don't think it can run
Oh,
both ways from my understanding, and,
that train one.
yeah, and it's one particular person that's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
spearheading it, but all the facts aren't there and what they're reporting out, but, yeah.
Just Allison, there is material on the Muni Facebook page. So Sophie has been pushing out.
Okay, so I said send it to Sophie, but I didn't know whether they had their contact or not, so we're good. All right, thank you.
All right, is that good, Allison?
Yeah, and then 3.6 is what I
3.8,
pulled.
we did 3.6.
No, 3.8, isn't it?
3.8.
APC.
Back into my agenda.
Advisory
So I
Council.
pulled the APC, for the Advisory Design Panel. And the reason I pulled it is because when I was reading through the recommendation, it has to do with the design of the new TELUS building in the minutes. And the ADP approving or recommending that the trees slated for removal, of which I looked at very clearly today on the way down the hill, Fire Smart principles suggest that you should not have coniferous trees adjacent to, touching, or hanging over your building. So I'm rather upset that here we are getting grants and trying to teach our community to be fire smart, and our design panel is telling people to keep the trees hanging over their buildings.
Yeah, it's still on.
I sit on the advisory design panel, and the panel was concerned with their mission, which is to uphold the revitalization development permit area for Snug Cove revitalization, and they thought by having a bare utility building at the at that part of Snug Cove Village, they were proposing to take the trees out completely and have a little picnic table there beside the wall of the building. And anyway, a number of other things. We thought, the design panel thought that in the keeping of creating a attractive, walkable, authentic, character-filled Snug Cove, which is what the Snug Cove design guidelines are all about. And because those trees are not adjacent to forest, they're just around the very utilitarian building, that this was an appropriate recommendation to make, and so that's why they made it.
Oh, I'm raising, I've looked at their design panel that's here, and they've got a nice garden they were gonna plant around it, and then a picnic table sitting south of the garden, and they were keeping some of the existing trees, so.
It was a no-maintenance garden. And
Well, what's wrong with the no maintenance garden?
anyway, that's the recommendation of the panel.
It's a steel building.
No, it's gonna have, party board on the sides and I think a metal roof, but all I'm saying is I think we have design guidelines that are now not good for fire smart, and I think we need to think about these sorts of things, and pine trees and junipers are highly flammable.
Certainly.
People camp under them, sleep under them, or whatever, then,
Okay, so back to the resolutions. You want to read those?
Oh, that we received the,
I'll move it. That council direct staff to revise the definition of sign in the land use bylaw and SNUD code design guidelines for further clarity with specific reference to signs on buildings in addition to standalone signs.
Move it. Second. All in favor? Thank you.
Sorry, that is the recommendation from the ADP. There was a staff recommendation, just for clarification that I crafted with our.
Oh,
manager.
sorry,
That I
yes,
crafted with our
on the
manager.
following page,
That's fine.
over the page, that during the review of the SNUD code design guidelines and land use bylaw, staff be directed to seek input from the advisory design panel relevant to signs in SNUD code.
So I think council just adopted that first resolution.
I think it was just moved in second.
oh, I think Gary just very quickly said.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I know it's unanimous. And what's the difference between the two?
Yeah.
They didn't think about it.
I think the difference is just that Daniel is proposing to tie it in tighter with the review of the stuff. I don't know, it doesn't look very good.
Is there much difference between the two resolutions? I'm fine with it, if you guys are fine with it.
Oh, what's the difference between the two?
Yeah.
I think it was just,
I think
that there is, it wasn't just the definition, they had other concerns with the signs. I'm not fully.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the issues were, the Copper Distillery has its big sign on the walls of the building, but the descriptions in the design guidelines and in the land use bylaw just refer to freestanding signs, not buildings on the side of a wall. And also there are new kinds of signs like projected signs and the illuminated signs that BC Ferries has now. So part of that was to update the signs. And the second part, I think, the difference in the staff one is that staff be directed to seek input from the advisory design panel, which wasn't included in the design panel's own recommendation. So I can,
Yes, the plan, you were thinking that we would be hiring an outside consultant to do the design guideline?
it's one of the options.
That's what Daniel mentioned.
It's one of the options. I could make a second recommendation.
No, I think we're fine.
I think it's fine the way it is.
Sorry about
As
that.
long as we understand that. No, I do, I was with you. I wasn't reading the italics.
I didn't turn the page.
Part of italics.
Everything on the page.
But
And,
something we did.
Okay, so that's a bit of a wrap, except for question period. Oh, really?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bronwyn.
It's
Stay to
always
the
great
bitter
to
end.
see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Anybody want to take a 2-minute break?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good idea.